It was still dark when I left the house that morning, the kind of cold, damp air that seeps into your bones. Milton is quiet before sunrise, but that day, the silence felt heavier, like the whole street was holding its breath. I stood at the end of the driveway, backpack hanging from one shoulder, waiting for the yellow glow of the school bus to appear down the road. The fog was thick enough to blur the houses across the street, and the only sound was the faint buzz of a street light. That's when I heard it 3 short beeps, sharp and mechanical, coming from somewhere in the fog. It wasn't a car horn, not quite. I turned my head, trying to figure out where it came from, but the sound had already stopped. I told myself it was nothing, maybe a truck backing up somewhere far off, and tried to shake off the chill creeping up my neck. A minute later, I heard it again, 3 identical beeps, closer this time. My gut twisted. I looked down the street, but the fog swallowed everything beyond a few yards. I took a step back toward the house, my shoes scraping against the gravel. The air felt heavier, colder, as if someone had just walked up behind me. I didn't want to turn around. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. But my legs felt locked in place. Then, from the left, just past the corner where the old mailbox stands, I thought I saw a movement, a pale shape shifting in and out of the mist. It wasn't walking like a person, but it was definitely moving toward me. The beeping started again, only now it was drawn out, like something was trying to imitate the sound but couldn't get it right. I clutched my backpack strap, forcing myself to take slow steps back toward the porch. The shape in the fog stopped moving. It just stood there. I couldn't see a face, or hands, or even a clear outline. But I knew without knowing how that it was watching me. Seconds stretched into what felt like hours. Then, without warning, headlights cut through the mist, and the familiar rumble of the school bus broke the silence. I blinked, and the shape was gone, the fog swirling lazily where it had been. The bus driver asked if I was alright when I climbed aboard, probably because I looked pale and shaky. I didn't answer. I kept my eyes on the window as we drove past the corner, half expecting to see it still standing there. I never told anyone about that morning, but for weeks afterward, every time I stood at the bus stop, I kept my back to the streetlight and my eyes on the fog, just in case. It was late in the afternoon when we decided to take Bragg Road. That long stretch in Saratoga everyone around here whispers about. The sun was low, filtering through the moss-draped trees, and the air had the damp, heavy stillness you only notice when there are no birds singing. We weren't out there looking for ghosts, just taking the scenic way home. But what we saw made my stomach drop. Through the trees, maybe 30 yards off the road, there was a school bus at least. That's what it looked like. The strange thing was that it was buried halfway into the ground, like the earth had swallowed it. The roof was still visible, streaked with rust, windows dark and empty. No tracks led to it, no sign of a crash, just this silent, impossible thing sitting in the middle of the woods. We stared at it for a long time, neither of us wanting to get closer, but unable to look away. There was no sound, no wind, no insects, just the thick, pressing quiet. I swear I saw movement in one of the windows, the faintest flicker of a shadow shifting inside, though there was no way anyone could be in there. My friend muttered that we should leave, and something in his voice told me he felt it to the wrongness in the air. We marked the spot in our minds so we could come back, maybe even take pictures. But when we returned a few weeks later, the bus was gone. Not moved, not dragged away, gone. The ground where it had been wasn't disturbed. No ruts, no debris, not even a patch of dead grass. It was as if it had never been there at all. We tried to convince ourselves we'd been mistaken. Maybe we'd seen an old shed or something. But deep down we knew what we'd seen. And even now, when I think about those dark windows in the middle of the woods, I feel that same cold weight in my chest, like whatever was inside is still out there waiting for someone else to find it. I'd always avoided the old schoolhouse on the edge of town. Everyone said it was falling apart, but I knew it was more than that. One autumn afternoon, I found myself walking past it, the wind kicking up dry leaves across the cracked pavement. The building loomed behind a rusting, chain-link fence, its windows clouded with grime, the front doors chained shut. Off to the side, half hidden by overgrown weeds, sat an old yellow school bus. Its paint faded to a sickly shade and its tires sunk deep into the dirt. I don't know why I stopped, but something about it pulled me closer. As I stood there, I noticed the driver's seat was empty, yet the rearview mirror inside was angled down, as if someone had just been sitting there. That is when I remembered a photo I'd seen years ago. An old black and white picture of a man in a driverless cap, standing in front of a bus just like this. He had the kind of stern, unsmiling face you didn't forget. My stomach turned when I realized his eyes in the photo were the same eyes I could feel on me now. The air grew still, and the faint smell of exhaust drifted up, even though the bus hadn't run in decades. Then, from inside, I heard the slow creak of the driver's door hinge. I froze. A figure moved behind the windshield, a faint outline, like a shadow that didn't belong to anything solid. It leaned forward, head tilting in a way that felt deliberate, like it was studying me. My chest tightened, every instinct screaming at me to run, but I couldn't move. The shadow raised a hand and tapped the glass, once, twice, 3 times. Each tap was dull but heavy, as if the glass was holding back something that wanted out. I stumbled backward, nearly tripping over the weeds, and the moment I broke eye contact, the shadow was gone. The bus sat there like nothing had happened. I never went back to that schoolhouse, but sometimes when I pass through the part of town, I feel the weight of the driver's stare in my rearview mirror, as if he's still watching from somewhere just out of sight. It was an ordinary ride home from school, the kind where you barely notice the passing streets because your mind is still on the day. I had my head leaned against the cold glass, watching cars crawl past in the opposite lane, when a beat-up pickup truck pulled alongside the bus. At first, nothing about it seemed strange: old blue paint, a cracked windshield, a couple of guys in the front seat. But then my eyes drifted to the space between them, where something pale and round rested on a folded tarp. I thought it was a mannequin head at first. The skin looked almost waxy, hair matted and dark, but there was a slackness in the mouth and a tilt to the jaw that made my stomach turn. My mind scrambled for a logical answer, but deep down, I knew what I was looking at. I jerked my head toward the kid sitting beside me, whispering for him to look. He leaned over, squinting, and then froze the same way I had. Neither of us said another word. The truck kept pace with the bus for a while, the driver never glancing over, just staring dead ahead. Every bump in the road made the head shift slightly, the hair swaying like it was caught in a slow breeze. Eventually, the truck sped up, pulling away until it disappeared into the distance. I wanted to tell the bus driver, but the words caught in my throat. By the time we reached my stop, the whole thing felt unreal, like I'd imagined it. But that night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that pale face between the two men, and I couldn't shake the feeling that it had been looking right at me the entire time. I was in middle school when it happened, sitting halfway back on the bus, one earbud in, half listening to the chatter around me. We just turned onto a side street near the elementary school, slowing for the crossing. At first, I didn't understand why the driver suddenly hit the brakes so hard that everyone lurched forward. The bus went silent, except for the soft hiss of the air brakes. I leaned toward the aisle, craning my neck to see out the front window, but the view was blocked. Then I noticed some of the younger kids in the front seats had their hands over their mouths, eyes wide. The driver stood up slowly, his face pale, and stepped outside. That is when I saw it through the side window's small sneakers sticking out from beneath the massive front wheel. My stomach dropped so fast it felt like I'd been punched. There was no movement. A woman ran screaming from the sidewalk, her voice cracking into a sound I'd never heard before, and she collapsed beside the child. The other kids on the bus were crying now, some asking questions, some begging to go home. I just sat there frozen, gripping the edge of the seat so tightly my fingers went numb. The smell of hot asphalt and diesel filled my nose, and suddenly I couldn't breathe. Minutes stretched on like hours until another bus arrived to take us away. But I didn't look out the window again. For weeks afterward, Every time I saw the yellow nose of a school bus, my chest tightened and my hands went cold. Even now, years later, the memory comes back and flashes: the sneakers, the screaming, the awful stillness, and I have to look away.